Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with the crew, Kyle, Ashley, Joe, everyone. How are you doing?
What's
So
up?
good.
Yeah, well, how are you really doing in terms of the 300 daily over decades challenge or 200? Kyle, let's just jump straight to it.
Let's just jump straight to it. Cool. I am at 15 out of 300, and the DOMs are real on the strength track. That's what
Oh,
I
yeah.
say.
Everyone here on the strength track?
Ceasing more except
Yes.
you.
I have pulled them over, but it's also winter, so like
I don't even know how you did
winter
that.
games. I don't either.
I mean, I kind of feel like strength track was kind of.
Yeah,
I wasn't-
that's your home.
I wasn't programming it, but strength track has been my thing for a long time. So it's really no shock for me that I'm here. But anyway, do I pick who goes next, or are you gonna?
Did you update? Was that a full update? You said 15.
What else am I supposed to update?
He's on level 1, so that's technically all.
I mean,
he
I
needs
want
to-
Yeah.
I want like some story behind it or something like
Wow, he's just
You know,
basically
like-
saying your update's not good enough.
I don't want just a number. Like, how does it make you feel? Like, how?
It's a therapy session.
Yeah.
Kyle doesn't even know
Go
what to
on
do
this.
with
This
this.
This is weird.
Wait. Dude, you're missing a
Uh,
rack behind you. How is that not an update?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Oh my goodness.
I
It's like
will
an
say
update
that.
for you.
I didn't. I thought we were updating the challenge, and that's what I did. So, anyway, okay, I'll give this update too. So, listeners may recall, like 2 years ago, one of our community members was going on a trip around the country for his job. He was doing job training around the country for the next 2 years, and he was having to sell his house, and he couldn't take his garage gym stuff with him and didn't want to sell it. And so he lived in Atlanta, which is close to me. So I just drove down there and picked it all up, and I've had it in my gym for 2 years. Well, he's coming to pick it up today because he's settling back down. He's actually settling in Vegas, and so he's going to be hauling it all out to Vegas, but he's coming over today to pick it all up. So I had to, over the last weekend, I had to disassemble his squat rack that I've been using and collect all of his stuff. And so, yeah, that's what's sitting right there. So there's a disassembled squat rack and some plates and all that kind of stuff that he left at my house. And the squat rack that was sitting behind me is now over in the main area where that one was sitting. So I'm downsizing to one squat rack.
It's a rough life.
It is a rough life, downsizing to one squat rack. So,
Welcome to the rest of our world.
yeah. So anyway, all right. That was a great updates time.
Yeah.
Ashley, you go next.
I am also on day 15, or this morning was day 15 for me. Definitely trending way more than 200 calories, which has been good because the strength track it's real, people. It's a real thing. Deload week has been good though. And yeah, the minutes is not a problem either. And so with the minutes, calories, and the days, I think that's all I need. How I feel about it, I mean, I feel accomplished. I'm thinking I may even, who knows, I might even hit the 300. We'll see, like 300 training sessions. But like once I hit the 200, I'm not going to just like stop. I won't submit myself for it. I just, just want to see if I can hit 300. That'd be fun. I don't really have any cool life updates. So, Joe.
I feel like Jerred needs like some glasses and a legal pad, since he's like asking us how things feel and stuff, where he can just take
Maybe
notes.
We've had some glasses around here.
Where's my couch
think-
that I could lay on?
Do have a bed right
I don't-
there,
Oh,
I don't think
that's true.
therapists can wear all black with the black background. It seems like
Yeah, and the
dark in
beanie.
places.
I don't think I would see a therapist that wears a beanie on its head. So just saying.
Wow.
Uh,
Discrimination.
challenge for me. I have no idea how many sessions I'm on. I'm probably only going to do like a monthly tally to see where I'm at. And I have the spreadsheet going, but I started the spreadsheet like a week and a half early, and it's also double counting some of my days. So I have to mess with the spreadsheet, and by I have to mess with it, I'm going to ask Marco to mess with it because I don't know what the hell to do. So that's what I'm doing. But we got to Monterey. We're in the hotel, very tiny base. We're right across the street from the gym. There's actually the main, the bro gym that every base has. Then they have this thing called the NOFS Center, which is basically just a powerlifting, CrossFit, cross training kind of awesome setup. It has 8 big racks with platforms. It's got a turf strip all inside. It's got airdynes, 2 assault bikes, or the treadmills. I'm trying to think what the hell I'm thinking of. The assault runners. Another treadmill thing that like simulates like a sled push or a parachute sprints. It's got a ton of stuff either way.
We hardly know
heavy
what's there at this point. But
I know. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
I'm just gonna start making things up. Yeah. It's got like med balls up to 100 pounds.
It actually has an
sandbags and weight
anti-gravity
vests.
machine as well.
Yes. It applies harder gravity than you need. Yeah, so that gym's right across the street, so it's awesome. So we can actually get into like routine and lift and do all that. The only bit downside is that we have to wear masks during workouts. So I was like, this freaking sucks. It is very lame. Can't breathe.
Yay, California.
And it's like that other places too. But yeah, dumbest rule ever, because how are you going to work out when you can't breathe? Even if I have to stay in my zone. But anyway.
Getting all
That's
political,
just another-
Joe. My goodness.
I don't give a, at this point, I don't care. I don't even care about this one because this isn't political. Like breathing is not political. I need to breathe.
Oh, I don't
I
see how
beg
it
to
could be
differ.
political, but apparently it is.
Yeah, I think it's just anyway. So yeah, that's what happened. So we have an awesome gym here, and we got a house. We signed a lease on a house 2 days ago. No idea when our furniture and our rack and our gym stuff is going to be here. So I'll still probably be several weeks before I'm an actual garage gym athlete.
For the first time, right?
Ever. Yeah. There's gonna be
Yeah.
a christening.
You always had like an outdoor or something.
Yeah, side of the
awesome.
house gym athlete.
Yep.
We're all coming out to help you, Chris, in your very first garage gym, though, right? Now that we're
I've
in
never
the
been to
same country
California,
as we are.
so that would be fun.
The whole state?
That's
Never
fine.
been there?
Nope, never been to California,
Me
like
neither.
any part of it.
Me neither.
Well, I'm not surprised that you haven't been, Kyle, but I'm very surprised Ashley hasn't been.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I guess my 300 update. Yeah, things are good. I'm at 300 level 3. It's been very challenging. I kind of let you guys know, but to update the podcast listeners. So week 1, I was traveling. That made it difficult. And then the second week, my parents got in a car accident and my mom ended up in the hospital. And so, as you know, they're all okay. All right.
Yeah, I was
so
like, let everybody know they're fine.
yeah, everyone's fine. But I did have to, I still was able to squeeze in like these 25-minute training sessions on those 2 days where all of that was going on, and definitely a stress test for the rest of the year. I feel like if I can get training sessions in under those 2 weeks to start the year, then I should be good. And I've been going strong. I'm at, we're recording this on the 20th, right before it's going to get released. And I'm 19 for 19. I'll be 20 for 20 after today. I'm trying to go 31 straight days in January without missing, just to have at least 300 level 1 in the, like some cushion there. Because I was thinking about it. If I didn't take a day off at all, like just say I don't take a day off, you could get towards the end of the year where I could do 1 training session a week and still hit 300 level 3. So I could just do 1 5-hour training session that would be well over 300 calories. And once a week.
We all
just
know
train.
you would never do that. So
no, but that wouldn't be, it'd be nice to feel like I could.
like you don't have that pressure to hit it. Yeah.
So yeah. And
that's a lot.
For, there were a lot of conversation in the group about the challenge and how it is like stressing people out or whatever. A lot of credit to Kyle's comments on the last podcast of like what you should and shouldn't do. Like, yeah, if this is like a mental battle for you, then definitely don't do it if it's like causing you anxiety. But at the same time, when I was seeing those comments, we have to know that there's a good stress and a bad stress, right? And so if you are feeling anxious and it is causing you like pain and discomfort and like you hate your life, yeah, maybe you shouldn't do it. But if it's just kind of nagging at you because it's difficult and you feel a little bit stressed to get something done, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So you really need to know which side of the fence you're on with that. And I think that is a slippery slope of like, oh, this is making me try too hard. That's one thing. Or is it actually causing you anxiety and ruining your life? So definitely know where you're at there before you decide to cop out and not do the challenge. But let's get into it. I think that's updates enough because we're not going to talk about this study for a very long time. So I thought we could talk a little bit more about our challenge. This one is impact of training protocols on lifting, velocity, recovery, and resistance trained males and females done in 2021. Trained male and female lifters completed 2 squat protocols. One protocol consisted of 5 sets of 5 reps at 80% of 1 rep max, the non-failure protocol. The second protocol consisted of 5 sets of squats to failure, starting with a 4 to 6 rep max load. Researchers measured mean concentric barbell velocity at 80% of 1 rep max pre-training in 5 minutes, 24 hours, 48 hours, and 72 hours post-training to assess recovery. There were 24 subjects in the study, 14 male, 10 female. All subjects had at least 6 months of resistance training and were required to have a 1 rep max squat greater than or equal to their body mass. The purpose of the study was to investigate sex differences in recovery from squat training. Specifically, the authors were interested in seeing if responses were different when training to failure versus stopping shy of failure. So there's a lot of, let's say, new research being done comparing men and women. And as we've seen just on the podcast, there's not like, it's not often that women are included in studies. And I was actually reading a different study in preparation for the podcast, and it was talking about it was a bigger overarching thing comparing men and women, not just in recovery like we're talking about today, but just in a lot of different areas. And there's always that kind of like intro, right? When you read the full text of one of these things, and it kind of gives you a lot of the background, maybe historical background, explaining to you why they're kind of doing what they're doing. And they said in there, like females were almost like not included at all until the last 20 years or so of research. Yeah. And so that's pretty interesting that, we don't have a lot of data. And it does seem to be that just looking at this study and multiple other studies that I was reading in the references of this study, where male and female are very different and for a lot of different reasons. And then even within females, there's a lot of difference around menstrual cycles. It's just like, even like and we're talking about performance metrics, like are different during, before, after, all these things. And so females are complicated. And I don't think that they have uncovered it all, to be honest. I don't think that like I think we're far from it, but I thought it was a cool study because it's actually comparing it. I've anecdotally heard, and then I actually pulled up some research to look at it today, that women passed in like ultra marathons, like past 50 miles, they closed the gap on men substantially. And I always thought that was really interesting, is like in short races, like a mile or, marathon or whatever. Marathon's not a short race for us, but in the world of long distance running, which go up to like thousands of miles, men obviously are faster in those regards. But once we pass a certain level, like that gap closes significantly. And I think men still edged out women, but instead of like, 46% faster or 37% faster, it was going down to like 4%, 8%, like these small gaps. And so I think that says a lot about things that we don't know about women as well, right? Is like they recover different, like we're just different. We're built differently. And I think that this study was really cool. Really, they found out, well, I won't get into it all. I want to hear what you guys have to say about the study, and then we can kind of talk about our big takeaways from it. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can kind of already know the takeaway if you see Ashley's name for the day. But what did you all think of this study?
So just to lay out the study a little bit more, the 2 training protocols, they did a 5x5 at 80%, and for the sub max effort, and then for the max effort was 5 by as many reps as possible, sticking between a 4 to 6 rep max. So as they would warm up, and if they were doing a weight that I guess they did a 7th time or at a certain velocity, because they were measuring velocity with the rep maxes as well. And once they were hitting a certain velocity, they would add some weight to keep them between a 4 to 6 rep max, and just keep that as much of a max effort as possible. So one thing that I actually learned that I was pretty surprised about was that I did not know that estrogen helps protect against muscle damage. I always thought of estrogen being kind of like a bad thing to have, as like you're a guy if you have more estrogen, but like it's protecting against muscle damage. I don't want more, but it was just interesting to know that it aids in muscle recovery. So that was kind of cool that I never heard of before. And the other thing was that this isn't necessarily new that I knew of, because I've done certain training protocols with like male and females. We would either do like a body weight squats for max reps or like 90% squats for max reps. And like me having not being new to lifting, even at the time, a lot of the ladies were doing like double the reps that I was at these max reps at like higher things, just because I don't know what their muscle endurance could do. But then what they also found was true rep maxes were significantly higher in guys. It's just like the muscle fibers that can be recruited for that. And to go on the 1 rep maxes, even though the women were lifting, they found women were lifting a lot more on their max effort sets. Like their lifting percentage went up into like close to 95%, whereas the guys were up at 87%, just when they kept on adding weight to the max sets. But starting off, the true 1 rep maxes, the men were at 2.02 of their, so times 2 of their body weight, versus women were only down at about 1.7 times body weight of their squat max. So like just different types of strength, men and females. But that was, so that was just like the brief overview of and the gist of the study. The estrogen thing was cool. One of my main takeaways as I was going through this was on like accessory work and submax efforts. I just going to stress women to try harder, because now we know science says you can.
I didn't say that.
Man.
Yeah. getting the dagger
Each person's
stares.
comments and opinions are entirely their own.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
Yep.
no, that was a collective. All the
not,
we had
not
the man had
liable
a
for
meeting.
anything Joe says.
No, just kidding.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We'll train in your garage in California. We'll see what happens.
Hey, I mean, you're server from squats, but just think of how us guys are. If the women are recovering better, so so that's all. There wasn't a whole lot else to take away that I'm not going to take from everybody else, but it was pretty interesting to see that the fact that it was laid out. And I mean, it was really interesting that as they were doing the max rep sets, the fact that the guys were capping out at like 89% of their max for their 4 to 6 rep max, versus women were going up into like 92 to 95%. They were adding more weight at a max effort sets. So being able to lift more of their, compared to their true 1 rep max in the max effort was cool. And then the recoveries for the max effort were the same, but the women were, I guess if you were to relate the load, the women were able to lift more of a load because the relative weight that they were lifting to their max. But I will turn it over to Ashley.
So some of the requirements for this were, I believe they had to be lifting trained for 6 months or more, I believe it was. And then they had to be able to squat at least their body weight, which, you know, in some terms that's not very much, but it's at least a good standard there. But I mean, at the very end, they found that, you know, Joe already kind of touched on it, that during the protocol, that men experienced a little more fatigue than the women did. And one of the reasons that they brought up too, Joe brought up estrogen, but they talked about the muscle fiber types. And they said that women had more of the type 1 muscle fiber, which is just the slow contracting muscle fiber, versus type 2 is, you know, contracts rapidly, which we've did a deep dive of on episode 57, where it was muscle fiber types. So go listen to that if you want to listen to more on that. But I just said too, overall for a takeaway for me is, I think it's just yet another win for not training to failure on both parties. I mean, that's just kind of like where I went with this one. And Joe talked a little bit about, you know, maybe women need to try harder. I think a lot of it too on the 1 rep or training to muscle failure. I don't know why it is, but I feel like sometimes females can kind of get in their head and don't want to add more weight to it. But you know, none of us were there. We don't really know. But I said it also, this whole being able to recover a little bit faster made me remember back to the Spartan. And all of you boys were just on the Slack channel I'm dying. It's the worst day of my life the next day. And I actually felt fine. I actually felt like I could have, I'm glad I didn't, but I felt like I could train. So I don't know.
To pull the Slack records. Doesn't sound like me.
Hey, I was with you that day and I was experiencing
in my defense, I had a torn hamstring.
True. You had injuries. Anyways, I just had to get back in there. One more for the women. Anyway, Kyle, what you got?
So in my defense, I had blown out a hip flexor during that Spartan race. So I was injured as well. But
going on to the defensive now.
But you did not get injured, so maybe that's your point, is you were just tougher than
I was actually fine after the car ride. My hip flexor gave up, or decided to start trying again, and then I was fine. I don't know how that happened.
Mine didn't. I was having to walk backwards. So that was, and those stairs were.
Jerred was walking sideways.
Yeah, we're not fun. I kind of took away. Maybe women are just tougher. They can push through. You know, with the max efforts. They can push through and grind out more reps. But I also, I was a bit perplexed by the study, and it almost kind of felt like these results were kind of relative just to this study and maybe not generalizable as much as other studies. But that was just me, but that was from the conclusion. The authors said, caution must be taken when interpreting these results, as the relative strength was not matched and the results cannot be reduced to pure biological differences. And so I think that was kind of confusing for me. Was there was a lot of things in here that as Jerred kind of pointed out, women are not represented in the literature very much. And so there's really not a lot to compare, or there's not a lot of literature. There's not a lot of data to use to compare versus the men that are represented in the literature. And so I feel like it's kind of unexplored territory when it comes to studying women for these performance tests and things like that. But that was one thing that I did want to point out that Joe kind of covered already, but how the relative strength was not matched, how the men were actually lifting more relative to their body mass than the women were. And so that was something, and that's what they're talking about here in this conclusion of being cautious with interpretations because the relative strength was not matched. And there were some other issues with the study that I had. Maybe I'm just kind of being negative about it. I don't know. But COVID actually kind of tampered with their data collection. They reported that in the study that halfway through the study, COVID hit. COVID basically shut down their study, and they couldn't do anything with it. And so they had to wait several months. And after those several months were up, only a handful of the original participants could come back for the second protocol, for the second half of the study. And so they had to recruit different people to come in for that part. And so there was only about half of the participants that completed both protocols. And so it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of, that kind of muddied the results for me a little bit. But I do, as far as this study goes, it does prove, that the women in this study were recovering faster, at least in the one protocol. In the going to muscle failure, they didn't, but in the 5x5 protocol, they did recover faster. So those are just my takeaways from it. And maybe that was just me being negative. I don't know.
All right, following the failure protocol, the time course of recovery was similar in both sexes. However, velocity recovered to a greater extent in the female lifters at 5 minutes, 24 hours, and 48 hours post-training in the non-failure condition, suggesting that female lifters recover faster than male lifters when not training to failure. So yeah, that's basically it. And if you haven't been around for any of our recovery protocol podcasts, this is something that they do quite frequently, is basically testing velocity. Either they do it with a jump, or they'll actually measure like barbell velocity as a recovery metric, more so than like a blood marker or like subjective how sore are you type things. And I find it interesting because anecdotally, what I've learned from females and training them, especially when I was doing smaller groups, is that in lifting, I would notice a big difference. The relative strength that you're talking about, Kyle, I mean, I don't know. I almost never pay attention to relative strength in any regard, because I don't know. I'm always like, we lift off percentages, we lift off of, but then in our standards, it's relative, right? It's like, it's relative strength based off of your body weight. So I think that that's important. But I didn't really look at it in that regard as much, just because I think that's a tough position to put people into when it comes to lifting conditions versus your 1 rep max. So I would be interested to see that done differently, but I have no idea where it would end up because I've never looked at that. But anyway, getting back to like what I've seen is that men and women, again, we're anecdotal here, I'm not pointing to any science, just programming protocols I had done in small group training. I noticed that men and women were very different when we would do things like 10 rep max versus 1 rep max. So the 10 rep max to 1 rep max delta, the gap in men is typically very large. So like if your 1 rep max back squat was 400, your 10 rep max might be like 50% of that, be like 200. But then for women, if their 1 rep max back squat was like 200, it's like their 10 rep max would be like 175 or something ridiculous. Like the gap there, the percentage is something I noticed. And I remember when I was like going through that, like I was like looking at everybody's results, that like popped out to me. I was like, this is very odd, and you can go back to like people say that women can take more pain than men. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's all there is to it. Or maybe there is something else, at play, like hormonally or whatever. So muscle fiber type, something else that allows women to be able to have that kind of smaller difference. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good study. It does show that women can bounce back a little bit faster, at least within 2 days when training not to failure. And I think that's just something to keep in mind also with how you're going to put your training together. I went and pulled from the full text, like practically how could we use this? And I thought that it was pretty cool because not all studies do that. And so I'll read the whole little thing here. I don't know if it's going to change our programming much, male versus female. But I do think that sometimes we treat male and female like we're both human, like everything should be the same. We just have different parts, right? So like, but other than that, we're the same, right? Because we're humans. And it's just, I don't know. It doesn't seem that way, and I'm interested to see more research and literature as it gets published to learn more about the differences. I mean, there's nothing crazy. It's not like we're dealing with different species here, but like, it is interesting. So the practicality part, in practice, the current results may have two primary takeaways. One, if using rep max zone based training, which requires the athlete to perform all or multiple sets to muscular failure at higher intensities, no sex differences in programming seem necessary with regards to recovery. Two, if using percentage-based or velocity-based programming, coaches should recognize that different individual athletes and sexes may be able to perform a different number of reps and have different maximal effort velocities at different intensities. Therefore, in addition to one rep max testing and or the creation of individual load velocity profiling, repetition maximum testing at lower intensities may be needed to gauge the proximity to failure and gather velocity data before and or during a training program to ensure the desired intensity of training is performed. So how I interpret that and look at that, if I was training Kyle and I was training Ashley, I wouldn't do it how the study did. I wouldn't be like, oh, that's interesting. Ashley's recovering faster than him. What I would do is let's get away from the one rep max, the heavy stuff, because apparently there's not a lot of difference there. But when we're talking about velocity-based training, if I was training Ashley and Kyle, what I would do if I saw Ashley was recovering faster through a jump test or whatever, I would make Ashley's training harder until you guys are recovering the same. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't just be like, oh, that's interesting. I would make you guys match. And so if that meant Ashley needed to bump up 10%, or do 5 more reps or 3 more reps or whatever it is, and then you guys are recovering the same, that's what I would push to. And that's kind of what that long convoluted thing is saying, is like, you want to take this into account, because you don't want another athlete to recover more quickly than, like, especially if you're like training team or something else, you don't want another athlete to recover more quickly. There's no benefit to that. You want them both to be seeing the same level of, what should I say, detriment to their muscles, like the fatigue level. Like, you want to see that and similar. And it's just like having, athletes at different fitness levels. Like if one person can run faster than the other, you don't just let that one person recover, 15 minutes while the other one just finished their mile, and then they get a 3-minute recovery and they both start again. You'd make the person who could run faster, do more. Be like, okay, you're going to run 1.3 miles and you're going to run 1. You'll both get here at the same time. And that way you're pushing everyone to their ability and level. So as a coach and programmer, that's how I look at this. And so for females, your takeaway in execution, when we are doing more velocity dynamic stuff, which we're doing a lot on the hard to kill track right now, is just maybe shorten your rest times, add a rep. If things aren't as hard for you as they should be, because when I'm programming stuff, Joe's programming stuff, I know we're not sitting there saying, this is what's best for males. I hope it works out for females too. We're just actually looking at how we program strength training. There's not really necessarily a male or female component. It probably is a little bit more male heavy, like we're talking about just from science that's out there. So females, if you are in this camp of dynamic training, push yourself a little bit more. So you're seeing the same stimulus. Like I said, that's rest less, that's add a rep. It's nothing complicated here. If you're just not feeling as fatigued, that's about all you could do. And, here's kind of the way to individualize your programming to you a little bit more.
Yeah, I think
much nicer than I said.
Oh, I got what you were saying, but like you didn't say it the right way, because they're doing the same amount of work. And so in doing the same amount of work and one's better, that means females just outperform. You were making it sound like females weren't trying hard enough, but it's like they were given the work and they were like, I did it. It was easy. I don't know why you guys are so tired. And so now it's, that it's a different way to look at it, I think.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to add was I agree with your statement where you said we just don't have a lot of data on females, and we live in the society of, it's like, well, you're just smaller men, right? And it's like, no, that's not it. But even so, between female to female, females that like differ between each other so differently too. So I think that's why it's hard, and why a lot of studies, I think, stay away from females depending on what it is. So I
do think there are a lot of I think, to be honest, you're right. Like if you're doing a study and you're like, because what other scientists do is they try and tear apart your study. That's the peer review process. Like it's what they should do.
Right.
It's what we need in science. But I feel like there's a gotcha in every female study. They'll be like, were they pre-cycle, post-cycle, during cycle? And if you didn't account for that, your whole study's screwed. You know, and then it's like, well, from what I was reading in other studies, is like you might actually have to do that if you truly want an answer. Like all three conditions for a performance study in females to truly know, because or else you'll always have an asterisk on every female study. I think for the most part they stay away from during cycle. I think it's always like pre or post is like a requirement. I haven't actually seen one where that was like a requirement and to get all the women on the same, that would be hard. That'd be a hard study to do. But anyway, yeah, I think that's one thing that makes it difficult, but it doesn't mean that scientists should shy away from it by any means.
Yeah.
I do think trying to find a recovery protocol for intensities would be really interesting for all athletes, because like when Liz and I lift together, she has to rest way less than I do. But it also goes to like, even between guys, like Jerred, when you and I work out together, you don't need as much rest as I do probably. And so like for putting all athletes of like levels, sexes, all that stuff would be interesting for strength to see how like, okay, I know we can do heart rate, but for, especially for being explosive, it's not necessarily about heart rate. And we do we have done a little bit with conditioning. Marco does on Endure even more. There's been in the past, we've had the recovery breath work, the conditioning that's come up in several different tracks. Marco does intervals to where once your heart rate drops below a certain zone, you go again, capped at whatever. So we do it some with conditioning to how people recover differently, but to find a way to do that with strength would be really interesting as well too, because then that's just another governing tool that you can do so that you can make the training more individual for you versus sticking to, okay, everybody's going to do 4x8 here versus whatever else you might need.
The most rudimentary way I can think of doing that is like a tape line on the wall and a jump and touch. Like that's it. You know, I don't know if that would be good, but from everything we've read on because you can't put weight on someone's back, or like you couldn't put weight on your back and be like, that was definitely 0.4 milliseconds slower than earlier, you know? And so like, because it's not that big of a difference in velocity. And I don't know how much the difference in actual vertical jump would be, but a cool test, I mean, I might be able to do it this week, is like do a set of 5x10 or 5x5, whatever, or jump, touch, see where I'm at, do that set, immediately walk to the jump spot, jump, and see if I can hit the same spot. I probably can't. You know, we're talking about within 30 seconds of having lifted heavy squats. And so I think that might be a decent one, but then to move away from like the most non-scientific way possible, you're adding jump training into your, if you're doing it after every set, it's like, and especially if you're jumping more than once, then that's going to be convoluted. But yeah, I think that's a good garage gym athlete way to try and apply some science to when you're recovered to be able to do your next set.
Maybe the Garmin Phoenix 9 or 10 will have a velocity monitor.
That should have been the topic for today.
Nope.
Why are you so anti-Garmin?
Never mind. We don't have
circle.
Wearable. No, not because it's a circle.
It's a circle.
I feel like it's because it's so expensive and it needs extra stuff to like actually monitor, calm down. It's half the price of the Garmin. Okay. And then I feel like you need extra stuff to get like an accurate reading. And then, I mean, I don't know, whatever. It is.
The new one has a new heart rate monitor sensor on it. So it might just be good on the wrist.
That would be fabulous. Because I mean, Scott has a Garmin and it is insane what it says his heart rate is. I don't even remember. I think his is the 7. I don't know, or that's the new one, whatever. Anyways. Last but not least, I will say that I have been recovering like every other male on strength track. So whatever you're doing, Joe, keep it up because I'm dying and it's great. So
more fun coming.
Woohoo.
All right. Well, I think that does it. We don't need to really get into the kill comfort here unless everybody.
You stole mine, so there's that.
Yeah.
Try harder.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it, right?
Nice way.
Well, you could say, since you're so much better than women, you're going to have to put in a little extra work under the barbell. Sorry.
I like that. I like that a lot.
It was meant to be endearing.
Yeah. Joe. Well, yeah. I think it goes with maybe you learn how to word those things better with years of marriage.
Y'all pray for Liz. That's all I gotta say.
I'm going on 12, and so maybe I'm just a little bit.
Navy's made her tough.
All right. Well, we're talking recovery methods today. Thought it'd be a good segue into what we're talking about, and really just our personal favorites for recovery. Mine are relatively boring. I get complex too, if you guys want, but I just want to say I've moved away from the tricks and all the dumb stuff. I don't do any dumb stuff for recovery anymore. I can talk about what all those things are. Ashley talking about like unnecessarily expensive things like the boots that squeeze your legs, like all that kind of stuff. We can talk about it, and I can tell you how much money you're wasting. But let's get into some of our favorite recovery methods. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Yay.
Get mine out of the way. So the first thing I said was, and this was actually going to be my killing comfort, but Jerred killed that. So I'll just share it now. Recovery.
If there's anybody who wanted to go.
Recovery. Well, nobody else wanted to. So recovery actually starts before your training, in my opinion. And so the things that you do on a daily basis that support your training are part of your recovery. And really, if you train the way that we do, especially like with the Daily Over Decades Challenge now, training like upwards of 6 to 7 days a week, if you're training every day or almost every day, basically everything you do during the day outside of your training is recovery. So how are you recovering from that training that you did? And so just doing all of the things, all the, checking in on your sleep, checking in on your hydration, how is your nutrition going, all those types of things, like all of that is related to your recovery. And so to me, recovery actually starts before your training with all of the things that you do before you train and just in your lifestyle that helps support your training. So you're either supporting your training or you're hurting it with the daily habits that you have. So one more check mark for Daily Over Decades, in case you haven't heard about that. Maybe
dailyooverdecades.com.
Go check it out. Or if you're already one of our athletes, the elements, which are in the app. So just do those. So specifically for me, and especially like I said, the DOMs are hitting pretty hard with the strength track, which I like. I like being sore. I'm one of those weird people because being sore reminds me that I did something and that I'm working hard towards something. But for me, it's staying mobile. Don't spend a lot of time sitting, or at least don't spend long bouts at a time sitting. Make sure I try to make sure that I'm standing up and I'm moving around, which is why I have a standing desk. It's not in the standing position right now, but it will be later. So stand up and work, or get up and walk around. Do something mobile, make sure that I'm moving around, doing banded mobility work outside of training, or doing some dynamic stretching, things like that. Just trying to make sure that I'm moving and keeping things going. And like I said earlier, trying to hone in on the sleep, making sure that I'm sleeping well and recovering well from the training, and also staying hydrated. Those are my favorite. I don't have any leg squeezing boots or saunas or anything like that. So anyway, Ashley, go next.
This segment was brought to you by Kyle.
Yeah. Some sort of shot fired. I am also in the movement category. Like, I feel like sitting still is never a good thing. as Jerred said, like this is the 20th, so we're in deload week. And there are some times where I take a full deload week, but that doesn't mean that I don't do anything. I just step away from the programmed deload week and kind of do my own yoga, zone 2 kind of stuff, just to like take some time away from lifting, but I'm still moving. So that's kind of always my goal for recovery. And then speaking of yoga has been huge for me. I've just added it in to my training, if you will. I just have like either Thursday recovery day, or sometimes instead of a zone 2 meet yourself Saturday, or a sexy Saturday session, as Jill likes to call it, I do some yoga and just add that in there to it. Magnesium for me is huge for recovery. And especially like Epsom salt baths. I hated baths back in the day, and now I absolutely love them. Like I just get in there and I do 2 full cups of Epsom salt, and you can even throw in some good smell essential oils in there or whatever you want, and then have a nice bath, and helps. And then I used to foam roll a ton, and then I bought Scott basically a Theragun, but it's the Amazon knockoff version of a Theragun. And I feel like I benefit from it more than he does, because they have real Theraguns at his special pilot gym that they have. So I feel like he uses that there a lot, and I use the one I bought him for an anniversary gift all the time. I like it because it's got different tools and stuff. So, man, it's great, but it definitely gets you. Yeah. And then I said hydration as well. I think we would all agree with that. But I will say, in my forever house, I would love to have a sauna. I'll let Jerred talk about it a little more. I'm not down with the cold plunge, but we can chat about that later. Joe, what is your recovery techniques? What are your recovery techniques?
Specifically, we go on lots of walks, especially because we always live somewhere where the weather's decent enough to walk for the most part. So we regularly go on walks, and 8 out of 10 times when you're super sore, need to be recovered, typically it's lower body. That's usually the worst. So moving, blood flow, walking around, just going on walks, and that's just you're getting outside, fresh air, sunshine, if the sun is shining, all that stuff. So walks does a lot good for you, and it's just good to get outside anyway, especially when you just work from home, sometimes just never leave the house. So long walks, we do those regularly. Couch stretching in the evenings, whenever we watch TV, I will do some stretching on the couch, specifically the couch stretch. That's just because I have chronically tight quads, and it really tightens my hips. So especially the day before squats, and then after squats, I'll do couch stretching, and I'll do a little bit of like a pigeon for the glutes. And it's just, you're doing that while you're watching TV, just hanging out in the living room. So that's an easy one to do. Talking about hydration, I specifically like to make a awesome mocktail of electrolytes with charcuterie juice. So whatever electrolytes you like, your Nun, your liquid IV, or whatever. And then I put, yes, Nun, not Noon. I still stand by Nun.
Nun's
and
already
so you make
taken,
your whatever.
man.
Well, None, yeah. So after your electrolytes are in there, you put tartary juice in the concentrate, and it just makes an awesome little drink, because you get your antioxidants and electrolytes to rehydrate. And the last is sleep. Your deep wave sleep is the way you're going to recover. That's when your body rebuilds stuff. So make sure your sleep is good, especially, look back, if you have any sort of sleep tracker, look back to the last couple of nights. If you haven't been sleeping that great, then maybe take a melatonin and get a really good night's sleep, because that's going to help recover. Even though you're probably still going to be sore, it's still going to help in the long run. And, sore isn't always bad, but it's just might help a little bit. Jerred.
Like I wanted to start with like defining recovery. Like, what are we recovering from? Like, what are we?
Webster's dictionary defines.
Are we trying to avoid something? Are we trying to prevent something? Or I think a lot of people, when they hear recovery, they're really just talking about, I don't want to be so sore. I want to be less sore. How do I recover? And have you guys ever done anything that eliminates soreness before?
No.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. So if anyone's listening to this, maybe, to be honest, I've never done anything that has made me less sore.
Ice just numbs it and then it comes back after you warm
Yeah.
back up. Like-
Once you're sore, you're sore.
Yep.
I like being a little bit sore.
Yeah, I think we're all in that weird category.
Like crazy sore. I don't even care about that. It's like, whatever. I sit down a little bit differently. It's fine.
Flop down a little differently.
So when we're talking about recovery, let's just move away from that and also crush anyone's hopes of like finding something that makes them not sore. The only thing that actually might work is medication. And that's not something that I'm going to say. Like, you could take some ibuprofen and you will be less sore after that. You won't feel it, right? So, because it's an anti-inflammatory, and that's part of the reason your muscles are sore. But I would only ever do that if I was in some sort of like ridiculous amount of pain.
It's like excruciating.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of what, or if I had to perform the next day or something like that, I would consider it. If it was like a competition, or like maybe I got really sore before I did like I needed to go do an event, maybe I would consider it. But other than that, you're kind of blunting the benefits of exercise when you do that. So don't do that. And I just kind of want to crush that to start, because that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking more of like your body, your immune system, your body's ability to recover. And I don't think there are a lot of ways to track your recovery. Whoop's not doing it. Sorry, I'm just kidding. Whoop is fine. Anywhere that's kind of tracking, I think the only thing that you could probably track realistically for recovery, all you need to track is your heart rate. That's it. Your resting heart rate. So if you want to measure that without, everyone jump straight to needing a wearable. You could, if you didn't know this, you can feel in your neck or your wrist your heart rate. Like, those are two great places to check your heart rate without needing any sort of device. And so if you wake up in the morning and then, just sit very still for a couple minutes, like 5 minutes or whatever, you don't want to do it like getting out of bed and then try and check your heart rate, or just don't even get out of bed and lay there, measure your heart rate. And then if you keep track of what your resting heart rate would be, that's a great thing to track. There was this, I can't even remember the website, but I mean, it was years ago. They had some sort of recovering protocol. And I know I've talked about it on the podcast before, but you would do that. You would report the color of your urine, and there's like one other subjective thing. Like, I think it was just a scale of, like the 1 to 10 happy face. Like, how do you feel today? And that was it. And they would like keep these records for you over time. And I'm starting to think that those are the best forms of recovery metrics that you could possibly keep. Is like, look at your urine color, track your resting heart rate. And the reason I say resting heart rate and not heart rate variability is because resting heart rate and heart rate variability are 1000% correlated. So if you have a higher heart rate, you're going to have a suppressed heart rate variability, and in the reverse is true. And so just something that you need to know. And how you feel, I think, is an amazing metric for recovery, because psychological matters when it comes to you training that day. So if you wake up and you're like, yeah, I feel like a 3 on my happiness meter right now, and like my motivation level, it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't train, but you should think about it. Like with me trying to not take a day off in January, it's 31 straight training days. I'm paying attention to a lot of that right now. Like, how do I feel? Am I getting more stressed out, or do I have a temper? Like, am I not sleeping as well? And none of those things are happening yet, because my training hasn't been that crazy for too long, but over a long enough period of time, it would definitely happen. And so I did want to talk about just recovery in general, things that you should pay attention to, things that matter. Check your resting heart rate and how you feel, because that will dictate your ability to hit it the next day. Not whether or not Whoop says you're red, yellow, or green, or really anything else. Like, none of those things really matter that much compared to just how you feel, and how high you can jump. Let's go back to the study, how high you can jump versus your normal. Now, my favorite recovery methods, having said all that, are sleeping, eating, and moving. So that's it. That's all I do. I sleep a lot. I try to sleep as much as I can. In fact, 2 nights ago, Emily's brother came over with his fiance, and they are night owls, and they showed up to my house. I think they're supposed to be there at 7. They got there like 8. And I was like, this is already a problem. Like,
Yeah.
showing up at
Going to
8.
bed in an hour.
I go to bed at 9. And they ended up staying. They live kind of far away, so you don't want to. I didn't want to be like, well, all right, let's go. Let's wrap this up. I know you guys have only been here 45 minutes, so they stayed till after 11. And I woke up. I woke up that next day with I think it was like 5 hours of sleep, and I was like, I feel awful. And it's funny how after you become accustomed to getting a lot of sleep in the military, I think 5 hours like my average. That was just how much I slept, and I felt fine. And now if I get less than, I don't know, probably 6, I feel awful that whole next day. Not real bad. I just feel different. I don't feel as good as I normally do. And so sleep is very important. I always try and shoot for 8 hours if I can. I probably average somewhere between 7.5 and 8:15 at the max. And so I think that's really, really important. Eating is a big one. We kind of talked about this before on a recent episode. I can undereat like nobody's business. I can forget to eat. I can not eat enough when it's time to eat. And it's just, I don't know where I developed these habits, but I have to force myself to eat as much as I should. I'll always eat, but I need to eat probably more than 1,000 calories than I actually would want to if you just left me around. I need to eat more. And I realize when I do that and I'm really focusing on protein, I feel so much better. Energy levels, recovery, everything is just so much better. So eat and then move. Because we covered, I think that we should redo that study. It's still one of my favorites that we've done. It's very early on when we started covering the studies on the podcast. There was 15 recovery methods or something, and we talked about each one. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
And that's where they had that laying in the fetal position was a good recovery one, right? But then after looking at all of those, they were kind of yeah, it seems like just light aerobic activity seems to beat out. And they had everything in there. They're let's take all the turmeric that you possibly can, or let's put on our leg squeezing boots. Let's get in the sauna. Let's do all these things. And none of them really outperform just going on a walk or zone 2 cardio or a short bike ride. And so that's all I really ever try to do. Even if I'm sore, you just want to get blood moving in and out of the muscles. So movement is really important. And that's about it. And I've said this before, things like the sauna, the cold plunge, those are hobbies for me. I really don't think that they're helping that much with my recovery. And good thing they're not sponsors, right? Because I'm basically saying you shouldn't get one. To me, they're state changers is how I think of them. They change my state, both of them, either one, the cold or the hot. They can instantaneously change my state. And so that's a big reason that I do it. It's more like a psychological thing. I didn't even buy either one of those thinking ooh, I'm going to recover so much better. I just enjoy doing those things. Some people have different hobbies. That's my hobby, is random crap like that. Maybe I'll have a cryo machine in the next 10 years, just because I find these things fun. But anyway, that's basically it. I don't actually think sauna and I do those things, and I have a cold plunge and I do all that stuff, but I don't think it helps that much with recovery. I really don't. And the literature doesn't even support it more so than just getting on a bike or going for a walk. So that's all you really need to do. Sleep, eat, move. That's how you recover.
I think sometimes the sauna dough is good for your immune system.
No, there are a lot of benefits. I'm not saying there aren't, but that's just not why I do them,
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, we actually have a story about the fetal position one. When I was over your house last and we did that 30-minute circuit, I went fetal right after, and Eleanor was out there, and I think she asked you or Emily what was wrong with me.
Yeah. I don't think I remember that, though.
You never remember anything.
I don't have a very good memory. I think I just remember Eleanor actually trying to, was it you? She was trying to hit you while you were exercising.
We were playing tag while we were doing the 30-minute circuit.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you had to play tag during your rest sets. She was leaving me alone.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So that's anything else on recovery methods from our favorites? It's not complicated stuff.
Nope.
I think if everyone would just admit that everything that you're buying is just for fun, we'd all be better off, right? Like our Garmin watches or saunas or
Theraguns.
they're just for fun,
Yeah.
right? They help. I've never done a Theragun. I feel like I asked if there's anything that has made you less sore. I've never used one. Do you feel like it makes you less sore, or is it more like mobility or foam rolling to where it like kind of
It's more
loosens you up?
mobility. Like it loosens me up to where like I feel like I can train the next day, right? Especially since Joe loves to do legs back to back. You know, I got to loosen my legs up that Monday evening so I can get that training session in Tuesday morning. And I sometimes even do it in the morning before I start, like as part of my warm up. So then that way I can, you know, fully get down the lunge.
Well, that's one thing I learned on BCT that I hadn't really pushed myself to do much, you know, training wise prior to that was I found out that your body can basically still lift the same amount when your legs are ridiculously stupid sore.
Oh yeah.
Like we would do these protocols and I'd be like, I don't know if I think my legs are going to break when I get into this. And they wouldn't. It's the most amazing thing. They would just hurt. And that's it. They were still the same level of strong though. So that was a cool thing to know about your body. If they're sore, they're still strong. So don't worry about it. All right. So what's the workout today?
Grog bowl.
Oh, my favorite.
Didn't we come up with this?
I think so.
I think it was
Everybody
all everybody. You're gonna ride 1.5 miles, or if you don't have a bike, you can row or run 1,200 meters. Then after, because this has been a state of confusion before, you then strap on a weight vest. Don't put the weight vest on for your bike ride. 400. Then you'll do a 400-meter single plate pinch carry with a 20 air squat penalty for every time you have to stop and rest or drop the plate. And when you switch your hands, that does count as dropping. So you're going to have to do 20 air squats to switch hands. And then you have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of single kettlebell deadlifts at 70 pounds for men, 53 for females, lateral box step ups. And then once you're done with that, you have a suitcase carry of 50 meters after each set of the deadlifts using your kettlebell. So you get done with your 10 deadlifts and then you do your suitcase carry as well. All right, 400-meter single plate pinch carry again, with that 20 air squat penalty. And then you take that vest off and finish out with another 1.5 mile bike ride or 1,200-meter row run. Sorry, it's a lot.
It is a lot. It's hard to follow.
Yeah.
That's what happens when every coach gets involved.
But I bet.
I'll try and have it on screen.
Yeah, you might wrong. That's a good call.
So tips and tricks? Let's do tricks only. No tips.
Write it down.
Tricks?
I'm just kidding. What do you guys have for this one?
Tricks, no treats. Yeah.
I said I felt like this workout would be another great one just in zone 2. It'd be fun. It'd be longer, obviously, but
I think someone mentioned that in the Facebook group this week, doing every Meet Yourself Saturday in zone 2, I think.
well,
Yeah,
I mean,
that was done.
it's pretty much what I do these days. And then I said plate pinch is the worst part for me. So just be mindful of the plate. Don't try to go for a 25 pound, because I'm doing the bumper plates, right? So I have to do a 10 pound. I wish I had 15 because 10 is kind of too easy. But stupid small hands, that sucks. And then for those that are not a competitor, no vest is fine. Just get her done kind of thing. Anyways, I haven't done a wine pairing in a very, very long time. I said old school rock jams, like some Ozzy Osbourne, some Led Zeppelin, maybe some ZZ Top. That's what I'm feeling for this one.
I've never heard of any of those before.
Okay.
Quit. Just stop it.
Kyle, what you got?
This one has a little bit of everything, so just make sure to warm up and warm up everything because you're going to be using all of it. So all of the things, not just some of the things. There we go. That's going to be my new thing. Here it is on a bumper sticker. I'm going to make a bumper sticker.
I was really thinking about like throwing that in like to the study part, because I normally end with a takeaway for everybody. I'm like, here it is on a bumper sticker. All right, women are better than men.
Your own saying. All right, no bumper sticker. Make up your own saying.
Here it is in a tweet.
Joe's
Don't
pissed.
tweet.
I don't tweet, but I could say it like that. All right.
The guy who said that doesn't make bumper stickers. So yeah, that's my tip. Make sure to warm up. I saw that Ashley was going to give a wine pairing with this one, and I agree with it. So I won't give another music pairing with it. So Joe, go for it.
The plate pitch is definitely going to come down to what type of plates you have, but I'm going to say for this, because the limiting factor for the plate pinch and some of the other things are basically just going to be grip. Grip's not exactly going to spike your heart rate. So on the 1.5 miles, make those like near time trials, like 90+%, because that's how you're going to make up some time, because the other plate pinch stuff is just going to come down to your forearm resilience.
Yeah, the rest of it's just kind of grind and move. It's just kind of grinding through the reps and stuff like that. So yeah, the rest of the runs or the bike, go fast.
Yeah, so go fast, and then in the 400-meter single plate pinch carry part, just do all 400 meters with your right hand without dropping it. That's my best advice. And then the second 400 meter at the end, just do all left hand, don't drop it. And then you even yourself out.
There you go.
Lateral box step up. I don't think that there's we didn't put like how high that needs to be, right?
No, because typically lateral is a little bit lower than normal box step ups.
Yeah. And so I would recommend going low on that one and doing it fast because that will take forever, because it's lateral box step up each side. So it's 10 each side, then 9 each side, 8 each side.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to take forever. I think I've only done this one maybe once, and it was like right after we first came up with it. And that's what I remember, because I think I did, I don't know, what's the standard? Is it 24? Like a standard box?
The regular,
the regular. Yeah, I did 24 inch, and I just felt like to be honest, I didn't feel that challenged anymore. I just felt like this is taking a long time. Like just doing these step ups. And if I would have just flipped it down or done something smaller, I could have gone a little bit faster. But yeah, that's about my only tips there. I think I covered everything else. You're probably not going to be able to do the 400 meters all at once, but shoot for it. Just see if you can do it. All right. Anything else? All right, we'll get out of here. To all of our Garage Gym athletes out there following the Daily Over Decades Challenge, you're awesome. Thank you for following it. If you do want to get involved, you still can. I think we're just always going to be doing that challenge. We won't always be giving a rower away, but you can just always be doing it, okay? You can always be trying the Daily Over Decades Challenge. So go check that out, dailyoverdecades.com. Just trying to get as many people involved as possible. It's very hard. A lot of people aren't going to finish it. I know everyone's excited and we're still in January, but soon enough that will fade. And then it'll just be Daily Over Decades, monotonous, doing what you got to do to get better. So keep trying hard. And that's a lot of our athletes who are able to continue doing those things. So thanks for making the community awesome. If you want to be a part of what we're doing, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial. But that's it. And for my weekly reminder, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.